Welcome to Tech London, a show featuring interviews with London's top creative entrepreneurs, startups, investors, design agencies, internet marketers, and freelancers that make up the Tech London online community, which mostly lives on the Slack instant messaging platform. We rotate through both hosts and guests for these interviews, so you have the chance to hear from multiple perspectives on London's tech scene. So welcome back to the Tech London podcast here. It's Jonathan Bailey-Strong here, and today I'm joined by Nikesh Ashar. Welcome to the show, Nikesh.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us. So Nikesh has worked in tech and education for quite some time, and you're very heavily involved with Makers Academy. So I'd love for you to just give us a brief summary of like your background and how you ended up at Makers Academy and in the technology scene in London.
Sure. So I guess going way back when, I graduated from university having studied air transport engineering and operations, and graduated at a time where there were not many jobs in tech, in aviation. And thought, okay, what can I do next? So I got into the travel industry, worked for a hotel contractor, which was sort of traveling around the world and negotiating rates with hotels before the days of booking.com and things like that. From there, got headhunted by Britannia Travel, and they're a student accommodation provider, and got into sort of the inbound student travel market, which I didn't know then, but is worth roughly 50 billion a year to the UK. And worked on a few projects for them, sort of brought in groups, and then the kind of like the segue into tech was working on projects where we had to build properties, and I was working on a project of building a property in Brighton, and we had to pay a web designer about an absurd amount of money to build a landing page. I was like, I'm pretty sure I can build this myself. So I started researching, like, how can I build websites? How can I sort of build landing pages? Got me a bit into tech, met a few people through Escape the City. And they introduced me to Makers Academy in 2013, 2014, when they were just starting up. Went along to... I'll never forget this. I went along to their demo days, and we still run demo days every 4 weeks. But I went to one that was being run as a novice student, or like a hopeful, stars in their eyes and all that sort of stuff. And there was a presentation there of a group of students who'd never worked in technology before, but after 12 weeks, they put together an app that would remember a debt. So if I owed you £5, it would remember it, and it would continue to pester me by text or by email or by phone call automatically to pay you. And the only way it would stop is if I marked that transaction as paid, and if you acknowledged it that it was paid. Otherwise, it would just keep spamming me every hour with text messages. I was like, that's pretty cool. You can build that in 12 weeks. And I think about a week later, I paid my deposit and left my job. So it was like a big career change. So 2014, joined Makers Academy as a student in June, finished the course in September. I think I freelanced for about 3 or 4 months. So I just camped out in their offices and did some freelance work, helped some students that were incoming because they ran courses every 6 weeks. So people that were coming in, they just saw me and a few other students were just hanging out. There was space. And we became alumni helpers. So got paid to help people, run their first couple of weeks. And I spotted a gap in their sales and marketing, pitched a job, and got employed by their sales and marketing director. So I kind of hustled my way into a job, and then sort of worked my way around the company, done sales, admissions, engineering, marketing, bit of finance. I launched apprenticeships for them in 2017 and 2018. And then last year, and obviously earlier this year, we've gone through a restructure just, to deal with what's happening at the moment around the world. And I've landed in the operations hot seat, working with the chief of staff and our CEO to ensure the company survives. So that's me in 30 seconds or a minute or whatever it was.
Quite a journey.
Yeah.
And for those who aren't so familiar with Makers Academy, can you describe, what it's like, what it's about, how it's different from maybe some of the other, coding boot camps that are out there? What makes Makers Academy unique?
Yeah, sure. So when we started, it was the brainchild of a software engineer and an entrepreneur trying to hire. Evgeny was trying to hire a software engineer, and Rob, who's the other co-founder, was trying to learn to code. And they met, had a conversation in a taxi, and decided to launch a business. But the premise is to change your career. So it's not just about learning to code. It's not learning. You're not learning a particular language, but you're trying to learn to be a software engineer and a good junior developer. So the sort of traits that come with that. So you're always asking questions. You're inquisitive. You have that sort of growth mindset that people talk about. And what we want you to be able to do is go to a company and take these values with you. I think we're moving away from the traditional kind of what's now called a boot camp. It's not as painful as it used to be. So when I did it, it was the traditional boot camp. We were doing 12 to 13 hours a day, 7 days a week. But obviously, it's not sustainable, and you get a big sort of cliff at the end of the course where you're like, the Monday morning after you wake up, you're like, what do I do? Because there's no work to be done. You just got to start this job hunt process. But over the years, we've learned, and now the product is that you're vetted before you even start applications to come in with us. So we have loads of events and activities before you come and sign up to decide whether software engineering is actually a career for you. And we actively encourage you to reach out to people in our network and in your own network to test whether it's something that you like doing. The investment that you make is not just the fees that you pay to learn, but also you got to take into account that 3 to 6 months out of work and other things that are going to affect your livelihood. So it's a big investment emotionally, financially, mentally, and physically. So it's a life-changing experience. You'd only do it once. Fingers crossed, if you do it right, you're only doing it once. But yeah, it's essentially a 12-week learning course and then a lifelong journey into software engineering.
Yeah. And I'm curious, like the students that go through your program, some of them obviously end up working for companies. Is there also a proportion that end up founding their own platform or creating their own startups as well?
Yeah.
And if so, what does that split look like? Curious.
The split is it's quite a low percentage of people who go into startups. We don't advertise in that market. There are specific boot camps that do that sort of work, that gear you up to build quick prototypes and things like that. Yeah. Whereas we are a lot more focused on the career changes type of path. So. And that's kind of shown with our focus on products that reflect that. So apprenticeships is an example where we want to make sure people have a career to build on. But the startups that have come out of Makers Academy, they might not be household brands, but they are sort of raising. They're at a stage now where they're raising sort of millions of pounds. An example is like Peg.co, who it's the entire founding team are all ex-Makers Academy students and staff. And they basically are like YouTube and social media influencers platforms. So if you wanted to market your product through an influencer, you'd go through Peg. And it's a brainchild of someone who used to work for one of Simon Cowell's companies. And I think they raised Series A recently of like $21 million or something silly like that. Another one's Chattermill that works on NPS scoring as well. So they've raised money. Vinteria, so eBay for luxury furniture. So there's quite a lot of startups that have come out of it.
It's funny you bring up Peg because that was what I was just thinking about. I think the first time I ever came along to Makers Academy, was during like a lunchtime kind of demo session, and the founder of Peck, Nick, I think his name was.
Yeah, Nick Heels, yeah.
Yeah, he was giving a little kind of presentation of what he was working on. So yeah, kind of.
Yeah, there's been a few. These are the notable ones. Yeah, it's quite a few years ago. These are the notable ones. Obviously, people go on and start their own products. We've just had someone who finished the course with us in 2016 has just launched an app that sort of puts all the ride hailing and the ride sharing apps together. So, and then gives you the lowest rate in your area. So they're taking you like minicab feeds, Uber feeds, Halo, and all that stuff. So I think that's Ride Hub or something. But yeah. Eventually, like most people should be able to start their own technical product once they've got the right experience.
And I'm curious, like, what do you see when you have students coming into the program? What are some common misconceptions you see or challenges that they have? Where do I start? Over the years, when I ran admissions and I sort of developed the admissions process for makers, I as like a product owner, I just put myself in the deep end, and I was taking every interview possible with candidates. So we interview every single person that wants to join makers. They have to go through a call and a technical challenge with us. People, I think the biggest or the most common thing that I saw people see or think of was that we will teach them. In the traditional educational sense, like someone will stand in front of you, like a lecturer or a teacher, and talk to you about things. Whereas our educational philosophy is pretty much the opposite of that, where we expect you to learn by doing, learn by failing. So like failing at something in our environment is perfectly fine. And also with our focus on career changers and people who sort of like our target market is people who haven't been in education for maybe sort of 5 to 15 years. They've been in work. And when you're at work, if you need to solve a problem, you ask your boss, and your boss solves your problem for you. Or, there's the few people that will go out there and do it themselves, or get help for it. Whereas when you're learning something, or if you think back to when you were in school, if you didn't know something, you'd put your hand up and you ask your teacher, how do I do X, Y, Z? Yeah. And the way education works is that to get through the class, the teacher will either give you the answer or show you how to get to the answer. We do kind of neither, where we're not going to give you the answer for sure. Like even now when people ask me a question, and I'm not in a technical facing role, but students will often come to me, or alumni will come to me with questions about tech stuff. I'm not going to give you the answer. Let's figure out what problem you're trying to solve and how you're going to solve it. And that's the kind of mindset that we want people to adapt to. And the quicker people get through to that mindset and understand that we're not here to give them the answer because there isn't a single answer to a coding question, the quicker they'll realize that they're the people limiting their own success. Like the quicker you accept that, the faster you will grow and the faster you'll understand how to problem solve. Yeah, that makes sense. Awesome. So just to sort of wrap up, obviously one of the best places to find you is on the Tech London Slack group. But is there anywhere else, a website or a social media channel choice that you'd like? Yeah, I'm on Twitter. So Nikesh Ashar on Twitter, or Instagram, MaxJet, but that's obviously sort of my personal venting platform to say the least, and it's mainly football and food. But yeah, tech stuff normally on Twitter, or just grab me on the Tech London Slack. Amazing. Thanks, Nikesh. All right, thanks. Yes. You've been listening to the Tech London Show. If you're interested in joining the community or even making an appearance on this show, make sure you join our Slack group over at techlondon.io. Till next time.